And welcome everyone to the Vortex Energy Podcast. I'm really excited today. We've got a very special guest who actually lives nearby, which is an amazing opportunity. It's Shar Molloy, and we're going to be talking all about deep ecology and how it affects the planet, how our connection to the earth, and so many other things. So, welcome, Shar.
Hi, welcome, Barb, and anyone that's watching and listening.
Yeah. So Shar first trained with Joanna Macy and John Seed in 2001 and has applied the wisdom of deep ecology and the work that reconnects in her roles as an environmental campaigner since this time. She has recently co-led the Environment Centre of the Northern Territory and is vice president of the Australian Conservation Foundation. Well done, you. She is also a trained facilitator and coach of nonviolent communication. We need a lot more of that going on, and an associate of Nonviolent Global Liberation. Her purpose is to support others to experience themselves as part of the web of life and discern what is theirs to do in a world that is unraveling. Actually, there's a whole lot to unravel just in that bio. Speaking of unraveling, it does feel like the earth is ready to just spin out when if anyone still watches the news. I certainly try not to, but enough filters through that you just go, "Oh my God, what is happening?"
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, Shar, let's just dive into the term deep ecology, because that's not a term I was familiar with, but apparently it's been around for 40 years now or so, nearly 40 years. Can you just tell us a little bit about the deep ecology movement?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the term deep ecology was first termed by Arne Ness, and so he was, I guess, an academic in the 70s. And I think what he's talking about within deep ecology, I mean, it's ancient wisdom. It's that we are nature, we are part of the earth, and so. But he was really looking at it in terms of environmental action. So, rather than kind of needing to, I guess, pull on people's moral obligation or, hound people with facts and figures about the impact that humans are having on the earth, that actually, if we realized our own ecological identity, that we are part of the earth, then that action is that it comes from our realization that we're protecting ourselves, and that actually when we impact our very earth systems and our air that we breathe and the water, that are you know we are totally damaging ourselves and our kin around us. So yeah, that term deep ecology is intended to kind of point towards a type of thinking that these two-legged humans have, that we're on top of this pyramid chain, and that the earth are
Yeah.
just resources for us to use for our needs. And the earth is, and the earth systems are unraveling at our from our impact of that wrong thinking, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So were you involved in environmental activism before you got into the deep ecology movement, or how was that?
Well, yeah, actually I was it's a bit of a story, and I kind of like to tell stories. And so I grew up in Melbourne, and I was sitting at my desk. So I'd studied banking and finance and accounting, and I was working at a credit union, and I was sitting on my desk one day. I was in my like around 24, and I don't know what happened. It just hit me that I really want to sit here at a desk like this, maybe with some other organization, for the next 40 years and build superannuation, and then one day then retire and live my life. And it just like it was something so strong from inside of me that was like, this is not what life is about. And so the next thought that I had was, okay, well, if I don't do this, I don't do what the world is telling me and society is telling me I should be doing, then what's the answer? And the next kind of thought that came was community. I need to live and be part of community. So it wasn't too long after that that I left Melbourne, left my bank job, went and lived in Scotland, lived in a
Wow.
sustainable lived community, studied
Where were
polarity
you in
therapy.
where were you in
um,
Scotland?
so was this some amazing? So I was in Edinburgh for a while, and the first day I arrived in Edinburgh, I told this story to another person who knows Edinburgh. First day I arrived in Edinburgh, I was introduced to the Salisbury Centre. So the Salisbury Centre is like this hub of spiritual and holistic learning. So it was, and I had a dream. I had a dream that I was living in Scotland, and that was why I went to Scotland. And it was like that the land of the ancestors actually was calling me and awakening me. And so I lived in a community called Monimail Tower. So this tiny little community on the east coast near St Andrews and Dundee Cooper area. So, and yeah,
Okay.
that's where I got married, had a baby. It's really, woke to a different way that we can be in relationship with each other and on the earth. And as it happens within living within communities, and then we actually then travelled back and lived in Tasmania. So I came to Tasmania in 1997 with my 4-month-old baby and my then husband. And as it comes, when you decide you want to live in community and live with other people, it's not easy. So kind of that interpersonal stuff, we haven't been trained. We haven't been at all trained to be able to live with each
Yeah.
other, get on with each other. And so then I've now spent 25 years really training in the modalities and the learning and the consciousness that we need to actually be able to live within community. And so that was when I was living in a community on the east coast of Tassie, and I came across the work of Joanna Macy, the work that reconnects, and it just felt like I needed to we needed to kind of learn different ways of being with each other and the earth to sustain community. So actually it was when when I first did that work that then I woke up and actually experienced the feelings and the emotions that I have around what is happening to nature and the trees and the forests around us, and could express those feelings within that workshop. But then I had that empowerment actually afterwards, and that was when I started to be involved in the protection of the Tasmanian forests, but also while doing that, bringing this deep ecology and the work that reconnects to that activism. So yeah, that was kind of in the early 2000s. I've
Yeah.
been an activist since then, and it actually came out of kind of that knowing that we need a different way of living on land and with each other, and that it's about community, but then knowing that we also haven't been taught how to do that. And the work that reconnects in the deep ecology is one of those things. That's why I'm also did the training in nonviolent communication, and because that's another tool for supporting community as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But so you were active in the environmental movement in Tasmania, and then
Yes.
you've also had a big stint up in the Northern Territories. Can you elaborate what you did there and what that?
Yeah, that's I really appreciate that question, Barb. And I think this is where kind of the deep ecology just is really infused within the environmental work that I do. So Joanna Macy, in the work that Reconnects, she talks about shifting from an industrial growth society where we're disconnected from nature and kind of living beyond the means of how the planet can support us, to a place of the great turning and to living in life-sustaining and regenerative systems. And one of the three aspects of the great turning is the holding actions, so slowing down the destruction, which is kind of the most visible. It's what you see when just this morning on my feed, amazing woman Karen locking on to protect the forest for the swift parrots. So that's kind of the holding actions that are often quite visible. Then the other actions that are really important within the great turning are creating new sustainable systems. So that could be like permaculture and rights for nature. So those kind of systems that place us in our right relationship with nature. And then the other aspect is the consciousness shift, which is really where that deep ecology comes in. So that shift from our thinking that we're separate from each other and separate from the earth to knowing that we're totally interconnected. And so there's a means of where you can bring all three together. And so this is kind of part of what I was working with, and had the incredible privilege to work with the Tiwi people, so the Indigenous people on the Tiwi Islands, which is not just north of Darwin. And like that area is pristine. It is extraordinary, like just untouched coastline, teeming life within their seas. And sorry, there just might be a noisy truck, but maybe we'll just see how that goes. And so there is a company called, can you hear that, or is it?
No, it's all good.
Oh, that's good. So there's a company called Santos that wants to build a gas pipeline and also open up a new gas drilling. And so the Tiwi people weren't consulted at all about it and weren't told about it. And so it was when the Environment Centre were able to connect with the Tiwi Island people and tell them about the threat to their country, not only from kind of the digging of the well and the digging of the pipeline, but also the huge amount of carbon emissions that would be it's like a really high CO2, like 18%, 20% CO2 kind of well that they want to drill. So when we told the Tiwi people about this and started the campaign, I first sat with the traditional owners of the Tiwi people, and I talked to them about the work that environmental organisations do. And I drew the three circles and explained we do the holding actions and creating new systems. And I said, also it's around shifting consciousness from thinking that we're separate to knowing that we're one with the earth. And the traditional owner I was talking to said, what? Why people think that we're separate from the earth? And I was like,
oh, that's awesome. That's so fantastic.
It was amazing. And so then we all, shared together and thought, what is it that we can do together that brings in that consciousness within the environmental campaign that we were doing. And one of the lawyers that was there, she said, oh, I know what one of those things where there's that magical crossover of all three parts. It's an on-country hearing. And so that, we had no idea where there would be any court cases or anything at all. And so we kind of determined that if somewhere in that future of that campaign that there would be a legal action, that we would request the court to come to the Tiwi Islands to hear the traditional owners speak in their own words on the country and with the dances that connects them to the sea country. So it just so happened there was a court case, and it just so happened that we got an incredible, amazing judge who said, yes, I agree to bringing myself and all the lawyers and everyone from Melbourne to the Tiwi Islands.
Nice.
And the traditional owners, they went and hunted the food that they would feed to the judge and to the lawyers from the country there, and they set up the judge so he's looking out at the ocean as I am now at the point where the proposed drilling would be. And the Tiwi Island people, they sung and they danced and they told stories in their own language of Umpagi, the sea protector. And this this is an unbroken connection to country and to sea for tens and thousands of years. And so not only were they kind of advocating for their rights and their connection to sea country, whilst they were doing that, they knew that they were doing the dance for Umpagi, the sea protector, to come and protect the sea. Wow. And so the Tiwi people, they won that case, they won the appeal, they've won a recent injunction. So Santos were ordered over a year ago to pull up that whole drilling rig and move it out of that area, and it's been languishing in the oceans for over a year. And that the sea protector Umpagi is at the heart of that environmental campaign with the Tiwi people and the environmentalists and the lawyers. And so, you know, that is like that real kind of just this shift of our understanding that when we are part of the web of life, and that web of life, we are connected, and from that we don't need to, in our environmental activists, you know, rely on just our brain and facts and figures and impacts, that actually knowing that we're part of the web of life and having that wisdom come through to actually inform how we connect with, you know, how we connect, and I guess the magic of what needs to happen really in that great turning of those holding actions and creating the new systems that are needed. So yeah, and it's just such an incredible privilege to.
That is an incredibly powerful story, and on how the role of someone who isn't from the Tiwi Islands could gather and garner their consciousness and their beliefs to so for them to understand what was happening. But I'm really curious, the judges and all the solicitors who came up from big city Melbourne,
Yes.
who were on the beach in Tiwi and being fed local harvested foods. Did you see any lights go off in the opposing side? Like, I'm sure everyone on your side who is defending the case, the Tiwi people, did you see anything happen, you know, the lights going off in their heads on the opposite side?
Is that noisy? Can you hear that now?
No, no, we're all good.
Okay.
I can't hear it. So
Oh, that's good. So I know I have heard that that judge who's now retired said that was the most amazing experience of his life.
wow.
And what's, you know, what it came out of that court case was that the Santos lawyers and the consultants then started a whole year-long process of consulting with the Tiwi people. And so, you know, the Tiwi people have like incredibly generously shared their stories and their connections with the people and with the solicitors. And, you know, the stories that I've heard from the Tiwi people is that they've felt that the people they've been sharing with have totally been, that have understood what they've been sharing about, and also shifted. And we know that consultants were, you know, that their reports and what they've written, we know that kind of the way that they communicate that there's something very different way that they communicate what they're receiving from the team.
Yeah, no, that's pretty incredible. And did you also work when you were up there? Were you also based in the Australian Indigenous territories?
Well, so I was on Larrakia country, which is in Darwin. So that was kind of mostly where I worked out from. But it was like being in the Northern Territory is almost being in a different country, Barb. It's the
I've heard that. I heard that.
Yeah, I mean the connection that First Nations people have with the country, their rituals, their ceremonies, it's unbroken. And so that knowing that they are part of, you know, the earth, and that custodianship and that kinship that informs their connection, you know, it's like to kind of be at any government kind of, you know, sort of government meetings and official meetings, and that the language Mother Earth being very normal. So, you know, there just was, it was a total different culture up there, but huge environmental threats. You know, it's like huge environmental threats from fracking, you know, proposed fracking, and the mining of huge water aquifers for agriculture, and wanting to dam rivers for cotton. The threats to the threats to the environment of the Northern Territory are huge. And also that those rituals and ceremonies are also, I think, from the lessons from the Tiwi people, they're also strengthening. And the Tiwi people are travelling around Australia and sharing with other First Nations people whose lands are threatened by often new gas developments,
Yeah.
there's, the knowing that those rituals and ceremonies actually can be a source of environmental campaigns. So yeah, I think that it's shifting.
Yeah. And you talked a lot about how the Tiwi people use their stories and I'm probably going to say this wrong, umpagi, what is it?
Umpiji,
Umpagi,
umpiji. Yeah,
umpagi, how they use the
the sea
stories.
protector. That's the
Yeah.
sea protector serpent.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering if you'd elaborate a little bit on how that concept of stories and the stories of the earth and the stories
Yes.
that we have on as white people who haven't had these 50,000 years or 50 million years of stories being told to us. How do
Well,
you
and that's
see
a
stories playing a
yeah.
role in in the whole deep ecology movement and in how people can get their message across?
I think that's one of the beautiful things that we experience in the deep ecology and the work that Reconnects workshops is we experience ourselves as part of the story of the 14.2 billion years of the universe story. And through an experiential process, we get to understand how our very body is made from stardust, what the evolution of the earth is, and to know that actually as our own story, and that every single ancestor that we've had from the beginning of time has um, has adapted and connected and been in partnership so that we're here in this moment. So we get to experience that actual very, very, very deep time story that we know as ourselves. And also within those stories, we also get to connect with the future beings. So we have a visceral experience that what we do here and now, who that's making a difference for. And so through these different processes that we do, we connect with that very, very deep time story. And it's incredibly powerful for people to have a new story for themselves.
I love that phrase, deep time story. Is that an actual phrase you use often
Oh
in deep ecology?
yeah,
Deep time story.
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Yes,
awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome. So how do you see some other ways that the deep ecology movement is promoting biodiversity and conservation around Australia?
I think a really big part of the deep ecology work and also the work that Reconnects is about understanding that as part of the earth, those feelings that we have, as we watch forests falling, as we hear about impacts on our waterways, as we hear about pollution, uh, I think that, and as we hear about our planet heating, and then the climatic, um, the floods and the fires and the things that are fueled by that what we can do, a one way of responding or reacting is to turn off the news,
Yeah,
is to say it's all too much. What can
yeah.
I do as one small person do? We numb ourselves with Netflix or scrolling or Facebook or buying the next thing or consuming and thinking that all we are is kind of a being within the society. And for even activists that where every day in and day out, they're hearing this, and often if they're not sourced from that connection from the web of life and from the earth, then there's a lot of burnout. So I think that one of the really key ways that deep ecology and the work that reconnects awakens is that through a community experience, we get to realize that and and feel our pain for the world and know that it's not a personal um, a personal affliction, that actually we feel the pain of the world because we are part of the earth, and that from that part of that earth and that part of that web of life, we can know what is ours to do, what is our small part to do,
Yeah.
and then take that action and feel supported within that web of life. So I think it's about sustaining our work and sustaining our activism. Also, I think it's about deeply knowing that and feeling that we are the rainforest. Have emerged out of the rainforest, and we are the rainforest protecting ourselves, not that it's something outside of ourselves. So it shifts a consciousness that also sustains us, because we can't just keep protecting one forest at a time or one river at a time, that we need to actually address what is the root cause of the environmental destruction. And it's because we think that we are separate from the earth, and it's that consciousness. So
Yeah, no, I think you really hit the nail on the head, and that's really why I wanted to with you and open it up so for a lot of other people to hear this. It's because it is so enlightening to see that it's not just about save the ocean today, or save the dolphins, or save the turtles, or save the swift parrot, or save whatever, because there's just a million different things. It is that feeling some all that is all around us already and here right now. And I think that's fascinating. But your group, the Deep Ecology Movement, has a whole lot of seminars and retreats and workshops happening all across Australia, and I believe there's something coming up in Tassie.
Yeah, there is, really excitingly, on from the 17th to the 19th of November on Bruny Island. And what's incredibly exciting as well is Antonia Burke, who is the lead campaigner for the Tiwi Island campaign and grew up on the Tiwi Islands. She is coming to the workshop as well. So it's co-facilitated by John Seed, who very much is the founder of Deep Ecology within Australia, and worked with Joanna Macy in creating some of these processes that we do, and co-facilitated by John and myself and Antonia Burke. And it really will be the only time that Antonia comes to Tasmania to facilitate a Deep Ecology workshop. So it's an extraordinary opportunity to also hear from Antonia directly the source that Umpqi is within this campaign, and for the Tiwi people, and how that sustains their work as well.
Yeah. Well, we need some Umpqi in the Tasman Sea, around Bruny Island in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. With all those salmon farms there.
Yeah, yeah. So, no, that's pretty amazing. And so we'll share the link, but can you tell people how they can connect if they wanted to join you on Bruny Island? It's just another week from now.
Yeah, that's right. So simply, there is a link that Barb will share, and so it's a matter of just registering for that and coming down. The workshop will start. You can gather at the venue from 4 o'clock to set up camp, and then we'll have dinner together, and then Auntie Chris will open up do the acknowledgement of country together, and then so it starts Friday night and goes through to later Sunday afternoon in Bruny Island. And we're also intending for another Deep Ecology workshop with John Seed to happen in the north of the state, in Payton Park, and that will be in the first weekend of February. And then there will be a deepening workshop. So for anyone around Tasmania, Australia, that has participated in any of the Deep Ecology work or the work that Reconnects, we're gathering here on the east coast of Tasmania, and that will be in the second weekend of February. And so that will, be an amazing time to come together. And that is on the long weekend in February, the Hobart long weekend. So that'll be from a Friday through to a Monday. So, there is a reawakening and a resurgence of deep ecology in Tasmania. It's also really what's incredibly exciting is a woman called Pat Fleming, who wrote the original Deep Ecology book with John Seed and Joanna Macy and Anne Ness. So Pat Fleming wrote that with Thinking Like a Mountain, it's called, and she's just moved to Tasmania as well. So the land is calling people in, and so Yes, there that
Thinking like a
into
mountain. That sounds
yes,
awesome.
thinking like a mountain. I can also send you the link to that
Yeah,
text.
that
It's
would,
online as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah. And you've done a lot of work as well with children. Can you tell us a little bit about how you involve children in the deep ecology? Or is that in the
Yeah.
Reconnect? Is
Yeah,
that a
well,
Reconnect side or
quite a few years ago, I was working with my then partner in Tribunna, and we were building the track along the river and the trees. And so we're doing the track building and the tree planting with the children of Tribunna School. And so what we did was, whilst we were doing that work, we also weaved in the deep ecology work with the children. And so we worked with some of those kids for over 3 years, and it culminated in a process called the Council of All Beings. And so,
yeah,
yes, the Council of All
get
Beings
there?
is a process where we connect with a kin, another part of nature that we then, through a process of mask building and a ceremony ritual, we enter into a council where it's just those beings coming together and sharing with each other about how the world is for them, what gifts they bring, how their relationships are interconnected with each other, and the gifts that they could bring the two-legged humans in being able to, find our true nature within our world. And so we did this work with also the kids from Tribunna School, and we also did so it's like this deep time walk where what we do is we walk over 1.4 kilometres and we trace the universe history, the 14.2 billion years over 1.4 kilometres. So then in your body and as you're walking, you get to experience that it's just this last kind of 20 centimetres of 1.4 kilometres that humans have been existing on Earth as part of this universe. So it kind of, shifts these people and children into understanding our place within that story. Yeah,
No,
so we've done that work as well.
that makes perfect sense. And where do you see the deep ecology movement going, and how do you see its ability to bring change? It sounds like you did phenomenal work with the Tiwi Islanders and Santos, that Santos project. What are your aspirations for the deep ecology, or for you in particular within that space?
Yeah, I definitely have. I mean, I personally believe that for the environmental activism work to actually really be effective, that we need to understand the difference between kind of working within the current systems as they are versus actually the need to transform those systems so that they represent that we're our interconnectedness and our interdependence with life. So really we need to transform our political systems, we need to transform our economic systems, and that isn't separate from the environmental work. So it's generational work, Barb,
Yeah.
and it is first of all being able to know the truth of who we truly are and our place on, that place in the earth. And I think one of those I was just hearing recently, Jack Manning Bancroft, I think his name is, who's an Indigenous man, is doing incredible work. And he invited people that no matter where you are to actually create a relationship with a plant or an animal that's there within, where you are living, and to come into relationships. So I think that's just a really, a big part of the work that's also that environmental organisations like ACF are doing, where we, invite people to be in relationship, to understand our part, who we are, who we really truly are. So it's that great turning. So that shift of consciousness, coming into those holding actions that we do and creating these systems, because we can't just simply swap out renewable energy for fossil fuels, if it's within that same consumptive capitalist system.
Yeah.
And so there, you know, there's a whole shift that needs to happen within the way that we all live with each other.
Yeah, because I think you're gonna find it easier to raise people's consciousness than to change systems, and you can't change the systems without raising their consciousness. So
Yeah.
it's, you know,
Yeah, it's
people
all
don't
part.
like change, very few people actually like change.
No, I know, and I think that's kind of probably the scary thing is that, do we need to wait until the world collapses around us before the change happens? And I think that's kind of one of those, within society, those movies where it's just like at the very last minute that we get rescued. And so is it that we have to wait until our systems around us are collapsing before we take action? And I think that's kind of part of, being here centered on the East Coast in Lutruwita. It's my, part of my consciousness and my thinking is also how can we build the connections with each other and the land here so that as the collapse happens, we can be kind to each other.
Yeah.
That we're through this work that we do and that we do here, that you do, that our resilience and our connections with each other here on the East Coast and in Lutruwita can be strengthened so that there's a resilience. Because, yeah, I like you say, sometimes the change doesn't happen. Often, you hear people saying it's just a near-death experience where they then change their lifestyle or their relationships or, yeah, so.
Do you think we're right at that cusp? It sure feels like it to me. We're right. The entire global system and
well, there's a lot of, this is part of it as well, is that there are vested interests that want to keep that structure in place for as long as possible. So, I think that's also a challenge as well. And that's why for me that activism it's on all levels. It's all that we are, as part of that web of life and as part of connected to, the seen and the unseen as well, and the mystery of life, and being able to connect in and rely on that as well too. So it's a transformation, on many levels.
that certainly is. No, it's been amazing. And is there something that I didn't ask you that you would like to share with the community?
Well, I think one of the things is that my intention is to start locally a group called Active Hope. And so that's where we'll be invited to come together regularly, whether it's every couple of weeks or once a month, and to work through the processes of the work that reconnects and the deep ecology work. And so, forming a group called Active Hope. So that will we'll start to do that maybe, probably sometime in the new year, I think. So have a watch out for that.
That's fantastic. Sign me up.
Yes, absolutely. We'll come and sit on the deck and practice Active Hope together.
That sounds good. Maybe we do it after Qigong at the beach.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Quick follow on. So we do usually have some quick questions for you. Are you open to?
Oh yes, yes, absolutely.
So what is the greatest spiritual lesson in all of this for you?
I had this experience at a deep ecology workshop. It was a 30-day workshop. And it was on day 28. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, oh, the workshop's about to end and I haven't got it. And I just went down in the dark night of kind of the soul and sat by the water. And as dawn came, I realized the water doesn't ask, have I come in on the tide high enough? The bird doesn't say, have I tweeted loud enough? And in that moment, I just really got that being present here on earth at this time and breathing is enough. So, that spiritual, and it was a spiritual realization that who I am right here and now in this moment is enough.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Mhm.
And what is consciousness?
Um, wow, gosh, what is consciousness? I guess consciousness is all that is in this present moment, I think, as well. Yeah. It's a bit of a harder one to answer.
Is. Where do you feel most at peace with yourself?
Definitely walking along this incredible, beautiful ocean, that no matter what is going on for me, that these waves will kind of bring up what needs to bring up and what needs to be mourned and let go and takes it back out. So yeah, by the ocean, it's
Yeah,
definitely my home.
nice. And what does your spiritual look like on a daily basis?
What is my spiritual practice? Is it? Yeah.
Look like on a daily basis? What
Yeah. So
do you
often I
choose?
will, the moment I wake up, I I hear the birds. And so my practice is to be in gratitude the moment, the second that I wake.
Nice.
And then often I will listen and do a meditation and um, welcome the day and then walk along the beach. And there's like I'm aware that like when we have a big vision and then the current reality, there's a gap. And if I don't have a daily practice where I'm aware of my feelings and mourn what needs to be mourned and let go so that the new can come in, then yeah, that's how I stay enlivened and connected.
Nice. I love that. And what advice would you give someone just starting out on their spiritual path?
Um, yeah, I mean, what my spiritual path, awakened really with the truth of who I am. So who I am in as a being, as part of this earth, and also the felt sense and connection with the mystery of life. So I think it's really deeply about trust and those practices that have us trust our self, our intuition, and connection with all that is. So practices that build trust.
Nice. And what's the best way for people to reach you who want more info?
So I'm on Facebook or Instagram. And yeah, that's probably an easy way.
Fantastic. And can you just spell your name? So it's Shar, right? And Mol.
Shar, yes, Molloy.
There you go. And can you finish these sentences? The world needs.
Love,
Nice. And love is.
uh, truth.
I would like to thank.
I'd like to thank my teachers, my ancestors, and yeah, this incredible, beautiful earth that we're part of.
I want my legacy to be.
Ooh. I want my legacy to be um, community where we know our true selves as connected. So we've transformed that socialization of scarcity, separation, and powerlessness into love and flow and truth.
Beautiful. Nice. I love it. So that was beautiful. And I think it's really important for everyone to realize that there is a level just above the standard environmental activism that I've traditionally been familiar with. And I think it's a very, really important level, an important step to be able to see that whole view of how the consciousness shift is so incredibly important to make that happen. Because that to me has been the missing piece in what I viewed the whole concept of ecology and environmentalism. So I really thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Barb. And yes, keep watching this space because there's more and more of us within Lutruwita that want to, be a part of this conscious shifting within that environmental work as well.
Yeah, fantastic. So looking forward, I won't be able to make the Bruny Island trip, but hope to do something with some of the other retreats.
Yeah, wonderful. I'll keep you updated.
Fantastic. So I hope everyone reaches out for Shar and let her know how if this has impacted you or your thoughts on deep ecology. We'd love to hear your version of in reaction to this interview. Thank you everyone for coming on and thank you for joining the Vortex Energy Podcast, Shar.
Thanks so much, Barb, and everyone listening.